You might be wondering what on earth is this on screen when you click the video about the iPhone 14 Pro camera. Well, that is exactly what I'm going to talk about. Just hear me out for a few seconds first. So the new iPhone is out, and on release day I managed to upgrade my cracked and battered 7 Plus to a brand new shiny iPhone 14 Pro. Now, as a photographer, one of the things I couldn't wait to do was obviously try out that camera and some of the amazing features that Apple have gone heavy with the marketing on. Now, if you're new to my channel, then it's worth me noting that I'm primarily a sports photographer, with 99% of my photography actually being soccer photography, or football as we call it here in the UK. So this clip is me photographing or preparing to photograph a professional football match here in the UK in the fourth tier of English football, Salford City versus Tranmere Rovers. And at this point, I'd owned the iPhone for less than 24 hours. It was very much an opportunity to get out in a sport environment with the camera on it and try and do a little bit of that alongside my normal match day duties. So this video is my first 48 hours with the iPhone 14 Pro camera. Day one, as I said, is at the football. Day two is at a sunflower farm. Yes, you heard that right, a sunflower farm. And that was basically giving me an opportunity to look at some nice landscape and macro photography with the iPhone 14 Pro, which I will come on to. Here's the aforementioned sunflowers, and here is my phone with a nice snap of Liverpool's waterfront, which I snapped actually on my old 7 Plus the week before I got hold of this phone. But anyway, let's dive in now to the 14 Pro camera. Okay, let's jump in. So we're going to start with some wide angles. Now, don't forget the 14 Pro comes with the main, the ultra wide, and the telephoto camera lenses. So in terms of wide angles, I arrived at this game and started to shoot some nice wide angle shots. This is without Pro RAW turned on. I'll come back to that later on in the video. So this is its 12 megapixel photos rather than the 48 megapixels that Pro RAW can produce from this phone. I think the wide shots here look great, obviously benefiting from the great weather, the lush green grass, and the 14 Pro's camera really brings out those deep colours and the high contrast areas of the image. None of these images, by the way, have been edited at all. So all these are straight out the camera, if you like, without any editing. As we zoom in, you'll see it does lose some details, but it's not actually too bad. And the focus as well, I thought was really good. On this first photo, it was focused on the stand on the back, which is obviously a long way away. If you want the wide or landscape shots like this, in stadiums, then the 14 Pro is going to produce some lovely results, whether you're shooting out in lovely vistas in the countryside, or whether you're kind of looking for those wide angle shots at football or sports like I am, or maybe in a cityscape. With this image, I thought I'd get a little bit lower and play around a little. The focus is on the grass in the foreground, and we're on the main camera at a focal length of 24mm. However, watch when we zoom in. It's actually got some amazing detail in that focus area, which is a lot closer to the camera than that main stand was, or that stand was that we were focused on in one of the previous images. Photography is often about timing. We all know that if you're a keen photographer. And when the stadium sprinklers came on before the game in the sunshine, a small rainbow suddenly appeared across the pitch as the sunshine shone through the water. Again, the 14 Pro captured a lovely shot of it, and the detail remains lovely and clear even when we zoom in. And look at the colours in that photo, really, really nice. We've got another wide angle shot here. Again, great exposure, lovely contrast, but what I think the 14 Pro does really well here is capturing the details in the shadow in the lower part of the image, as well as exposing obviously primarily for the brighter part of the frame. This was the ultra wide angle lens, so this is a 22mm focal range, as the info on the photo shows. And so onto those beautiful sunflowers that I mentioned. So the day after that football match on the Sunday, my wife took our little 3-month-old daughter just up to see some flowers and kind of have some time in the fresh air before the bad weather comes. And it was actually some lovely weather, and what it allowed us to do is get some nice little photos actually of the sunflowers just before the sunflower season ends. Again, I think these photos look great. Very little thought was kind of put into the images as far as setup is concerned and as far as composition goes. So they are very a little bit spare at the moment shots, but I think the 14 Pro cameras just make the shots look absolutely brilliant. So yeah, these are pretty much shot off the hip, and we wanted to see what the kind of iPhone 14 Pro could produce just on the fly, if you like. And they're just so alive and bright, and they scream summer even though we're into autumn here. It kind of very summery feel with the bright yellow and the nice blue sky. Okay, so the old 7 Plus I had also had telephoto on it, but I was really excited to see how it's moved on with the 14 Pro. And this is quite a lame shot from a photography perspective. However, as we zoom into the player moving away, the telephoto has actually done a good job of capturing the detail. This is a focal length of 77 millimeters. Next shot of a stadium is also at 77 mil. I think it's pretty good, and there's a lot of detail in there as well. For me though, it's this photo here on screen that really starts to give a hint that this is actually a pretty good camera if you want to snap a little bit of action photography. Now obviously control over the shutter speed and that isn't something you've got like you would have with a DSLR or a mirrorless camera. However, if we look at this, so it's a 77 mil focal length, f2.8 and 12 megapixel shot. When we crop it, it actually starts to look like a bit of a nice action photo. Now admittedly the quality's gone a little bit out of there once we've cropped it, but it has frozen the image okay, and I think it looks pretty decent considering this is from a smartphone. Okay, let's move on to the burst mode. So if you're a sports photographer, you're going to be taking a lot of images really, really quick. So to turn on the burst mode, what you need to do is, first of all, the burst mode's turned on by default, but what I would recommend doing is allowing you to get the burst of images by using the volume button. So just go into the settings that I've showed on screen there and select that on. What you then do is you can kind of hold that volume button up, and and it'll take a burst of images until you take your finger off it. And you can see on screen here, this is the burst. You can basically allows you to pick which ones you want to work with or get rid of any you don't. Now, this was very experimental. I'm obviously trying to actually shoot the football match properly here and not miss any action on the main camera, so I wasn't going to get anything too close up with this. So the burst is okay. I mean, you're going to have to really have the subject a lot closer to you. You're going to have to time things better and frame it better as well to really try this out. But yeah, there's the burst mode. I definitely need to do some more testing with that. Moving on to macro, and if I'm honest, if there's one thing about the 14 Pro camera that really, really impressed me, it is the macro. And let me show you why. And it was this first shot I took with this is my jeans. So at the side of the pitch, I'd put my phone down on my knee while a game attacked, press a shutter, and this was the macro mode that kicked in on my jeans. Here's a shot of the turf. Again, look at the detail when we zoom in. You can see droplets of water on each individual blade of grass. This is all straight out of the 14 Pro camera, by the way, no editing or anything. Here's a close-up of those sunflowers I mentioned before as well. So again, certainly in the middle there as we zoom in, there's some really, really nice detail captured. It's just really, really impressive. I mean, look at this shot here. It's nothing special, I guess, if you're a macro photographer, but I think to be able to just pick up a smartphone and shoot this is pretty remarkable. I did try these flowers were moving around in a wind, as you saw from a brief clip of video at the start. So when these two bees landed, I couldn't get anything crisper than this. And again, here's some water droplets on the middle of one of those sunflowers. So the macro mode, I think, on this is pretty amazing, actually. To be able to do that with a smartphone, with an iPhone 14 Pro, is phenomenal. All right, let's move on to the cinematic video mode. Now, this obviously allows you to hold the focus on a certain thing within a frame while moving the camera, with the idea being that the focus will hold on that same element. So here I am with a couple of sunflowers we took home. That little mark there just shows you what I'm focused on, and as you move the camera, the focus stays lovely and crisp on that sunflower until I switch over to the other one there by just pressing the screen. So again, pretty good results on that. Okay, we're going to move on to the front facing camera, and just to warn you, you're about to see some very high definition footage of my face. I shot a little intro to one of my videos on the way into the ground.
So I've just arrived at Salford. We're about 2 hours out from kickoff, just after 1 o'clock here. So I'm going to get out.
So as you can hear, the microphone on it, obviously I was in a car shooting this, so very quiet and closed off, controlled environment, but the sound, audio, I think is really good. The footage from a front facing camera is a massive improvement on my old 7 Plus, as you'd expect. Okay, I love this feature in the iPhone 14 Pro. It's basically a lookup feature. So have a look at this photo here I've paused on. That hoarding in the back, even though there's a football covering it. The iPhone, see that little icon that comes on if you press it? It recognizes the text on that advertising hoarding and then generates it into a link. So for this was Castor.com, which is a sporting brand. And it automatically recognizes and it allows you to click into the website, which is great. But this one is even more impressive. Remember before I mentioned those bumblebees or on the sunflower? Look at that. See the two little dots that have come up, the two little bug icons on the when we swipe up on the photo in camera roll, and it basically then identifies automatically what that bug is and gives you links off to learn more about it. And I think that is really, really cool. And there's obviously loads of apps out there right now that allow you to do this. But this is built in, which is cool. Very quickly onto the Pro RAW. So this is the RAW camera. So you have to go into settings to turn Pro RAW or ProRes on, as I'm doing on screen now. And then what you can do when you've shot images in Pro RAW, you can still view them in camera roll, but where you get the real value is if you boot them out into your computer and maybe load up Adobe Camera Raw through Photoshop or Lightroom. You can then actually really tweak them. These are really massively detailed and high quality images. I think was it 48 megapixels I mentioned before, and it allows you to really work with them and change them up and edit them as you would with, if you had a DSLR and took a raw image. Basically, you're doing the same thing here as well. Of all the photos I shot in Pro RAW mode, I think this shot of the seats is probably my favourite. And when we've changed some of the levels and edited that up a little bit in Adobe Camera Raw, and we go to the main finished article, the finished image, I think it's really good, and you can see some real lovely detail in those old well-worn seats. There's scratches and a bit of dirt and all sorts of signs of wear on those images, and I just think the camera has done a great job in the poor light of picking up on that, and it's got the reflection from the floodlights and different things in as well. Okay, similarly, we move on into the ProRes video format that also has to be turned on in the settings as I showed earlier. And with this footage, I basically just shot a few clips at the end of a night match on last Tuesday, and then dropped all of the footage into Premiere Pro on my MacBook, and it's basically unedited. I haven't touched up any of this format, so it is any of these clips, sorry. So it is as you see it here. I didn't have a gimbal or anything else, by the way, so it's just kind of ad-libbing at the end a little bit with this. But again, first reactions are this produces some beautiful footage, and if you do have use of a gimbal, I know there are some stabilization technologies in the iPhone I haven't played with yet, but if you do have a gimbal, I reckon this will produce some fantastic video footage for your video projects. So in summary, I'm really impressed with my initial usage of the 14 Pro camera. I think there's some great imagery. I think the macro is probably the standout functionality for me at this point. Can't wait to use burst mode a bit more and really try and push it from a sports photography perspective. It'll never replace inverted commas proper cameras for sports photography, but I think it's a leaps and bounds ahead of where we've been previously, and it's exciting. This photographic styles, by the way, I want to do some experimenting on that as well as using Pro RAW and ProRes a lot more. So that's it for this video. Let me know what you think. Let me know your experiences of the 14 Pro camera so far, and I will try and upload a couple more videos in the future as and when I use this some more.